Right now time is 8:46 p.m. I am at East Amherst in the New York State. It is USA East time. I am recording this talk number R13. Topic is what happens after meeting God Almighty. Date is 6 December 2015. By the way, this talk has big revelations. Therefore, I have spent 8 hours in trying to recollect all those and then to put them on paper, then rewrote them, and I have prepared a written material so that I can read it out, and this will help not only saving the time but also including everything and nothing may miss out. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important topic of all my talks. It describes my experience of about 7 years after I met God Almighty. Although there could be many descriptions in various books, but those will remain doubtful. It would have been better if some of those who met God Almighty could have described their experience the way I am going to do it in this talk. Such revelations do a good public service because the genuine seekers of God Almighty can get some knowledge to explore. Through such explorations only, one either finds these to be true or untrue, and thus one becomes nearer to God Almighty. While on this subject, I thank ancient wise men who told us that there is one supreme power, that is God Almighty, who does everything. I explored and found it to be true. Similarly, those things whose knowledge I got from books and probably not based on some real experiences, but made me wiser, that in my explorations I found those to be untrue. So I now will come to my biggest revelations. After God my Almighty's darshan, I was stunned and then elated. It took some time in getting this great experience sink in me fully. The first thing after this great event was that the whole world, though still the same, appeared in my eyes and all my senses different. By the way, physically I remained the same. So the changes were in my mind. That too, especially perceptions. As the time kept on passing, I had new experiences. Before meeting God Almighty, I had a height in the scale of humanity, maybe between 90 to 93%. So therefore, there were still quite a few matters to be won over. In this context, I felt that I have won over most of these immediately after God Almighty's darshan. Later, it proved correct through actual experiences. Now I probably need to climb only 5 to 7% to reach the pinnacle. So I'm sure, if not the pinnacle, I'll be able to reach about 98%. I was and I am a man who would get moved watching serious problems of those in whose contact I live, as well as other national and international events giving worries. When I prayed for them, that is for the correction of these things. Before meeting the God Almighty, the success rate was less, but it has improved considerably after meeting you. So after meeting him, it has improved. This is a great thing. I pray because I feel a pain inside me due to their problems. Once I felt that I am taxing God Almighty too much, but I immediately got the answer that I can continue doing it. I then realized that God Almighty looks after a very, very vast empire of His, dealing with trillions of His creations, and therefore my thinking that I am taxing Him too much was childish. We can flood Him with our innumerable prayers, demands, wishes. But He also informed me that while I can continue praying for others, He will grant only that which does not alter His designs. I think it should be well understood by everybody. As regards my matters, I was very clearly told that He is already taking care of me and paying attention to me, so there is no need of praying to Him for myself. But He said that if fell by me, I can do it, as I have freedom of thought. Due to this, I pray seldom for myself. Once I was disheartened because I noticed that my few prayers for others were almost rejected by Him one by one in a short period. I prayed to Him to get the answer. I got this answer, that those problems cannot be removed beyond more than a particular level. And this has been already done, and therefore I should ask those persons about it. I did ask just one and found it to be correct. In fact, earlier I got a negative answer because the whole expectation of the particular person was not met. So this also happens. I think we should be thanking God Almighty even if some partial relief is granted to us. So such things do happen. We have to endure our problems. There is no other way out, my dear friends. God Almighty is not going to remove all these just by self-praying, or even if I pray for them, because after all, the problems have been given by Him only and are a part of His design. By the way, the answers given by God Almighty to me come to my mind only. Naturally, the answer will come to my mind. Therefore, if these are on the lines of my own thinking, I do not take them immediately at His answer, because I feel that this may be a reflection of my own thoughts. I wait. And when I keep on putting the same question to the God Almighty to get the answer for days and days, then a day comes when I get a question from Him that, after all, how long you will take to believe me? And then I take it as His answer. So therefore, in this method, the chances of a mistake are not there. On the matter of getting paid on certain gruesome criminal acts and on not getting His reply that He will stop it, I have asked if there is another independent power which does such bad things. On this I have His clear answer that there is no other power which can do things which He does not want. So this is important revelation, and hence the belief of some people that God is only love and does only good things and some other power does bad things is not true. That is probably our own imagination. God gives us punishment also. But I do not want to enter in any controversy on this matter, and do not want to counter any belief. I have said only what I have come to know. I'm not countering anything, let people have their own beliefs. So my pain, which is extreme, you see, on gruesome criminal acts, it is really extreme. When I hear about such gruesome incidents, I feel like dying. So anyway, I think I am destined that this pain will stay with me. Anyway, I will endure it, but will keep on requesting God Almighty to stop it. He may not agree, but I will also not agree not to keep on appealing and requesting Him about it, because it comes under my freedom of thought given to me by He Himself. It may probably stop if God Almighty makes me insane so that I lose my freedom of thought. If that happens, I will not mind, but I will not stop requesting and appealing to Him. By the way, I am not quarreling with God Almighty. I have full faith on His power, but I am only praying and requesting for a right cause as per my thought. So I don't want to stop that. Let us see what happens. As I have spoken many times in my talks, number R1 to R12, I am recording these videos and uploading on YouTube here in USA without access to my jotted down papers which are lying in India. After meeting him, I got many revelations which are noted in those papers. These were many. However, whatever I can recollect from my memory, I am sharing on these recordings. Therefore, if I come to know of the omission of few very important revelations, I will record and upload from India under T15 onwards. Because instead of R means revelation, those talks will be called talk, T15, T15 onwards, because up to 14, tomorrow I will be, I think, completing that 14 and this series will be over, R14 will be done. So after that it will be T15 onwards. So this will be in this series itself. 1 year after meeting God Almighty, I felt strongly to write a book and publish it, but I held back from attempting to write. I felt that God Almighty will give me strong signals if He wants to really get that happen. And then only I will act. Then I recollected that I have not approached any publisher for my management book. And when I approached for my novel, which was written in 2005, and I approached in 2005 to about 5 publishers in USA, I did not get positive response. This novel also gives many insights. This publication could have been useful. So I felt that probably God Almighty Himself does not want that these things should come in public domain. So if He doesn't want, then why I should bother? I already lost interest for the novel after those 5 rejections, I'll say. And I did not bother because I was very busy in my spiritual journey, so I did not revisit that. So I was waiting for that signal from God Almighty. And it suits me, as I do not want followers to flock to me. I do not believe advertisements for this matter, because it should go to people in the natural way, that is, word of mouth. I believe that there should not be a leader and follower relationship in most matters. There should be only mental colleagues and supporters for some viewpoint. However, just look now. I had a strong urge towards end of September 2015 to record videos and upload the same on the YouTube on various matters I have. That is that management book, and this matters about meeting God Almighty. I don't think that I got some signal for my novel, because that is a big novel, it cannot be uploaded. I have a gist here in the computer of my son. That is also 24 pages long, because the novel is 272,000 words. So probably if that signal comes from God Almighty, I may read a story, it's just running into 24 pages. So just look at this, that towards September, and you see, when I got that urge, I did not act immediately. I just waited again that let me see whether it is really God's wish or not. But then I got a very strong urge that it was not urge, frankly speaking, it appeared to be the order from the God Almighty that I must do it quickly. You see, later on, I have guessed the reason, which I might share in future. And this may be because of certain reasons. I had the habit of writing letters to several persons on some important matters before meeting God Almighty. Through this, I feel that I have done my duty. This habit has continued after meeting God Almighty, but now the number of letters has come down substantially, as now I write only on those matters where I feel that it may be God Almighty's wish, but I do not give Him the trouble of my asking about it and expecting a reply, because after all it is my job and I should do it. After meeting Him, I now feel concerned about those who do wrong or bad acts, because the same would result in some misery to them. But earlier, means before meeting God Almighty, I did not have concern. In fact, I had contempt towards them. So such a great change has come after meeting God Almighty. After they are also God Almighty's children. Maybe God Almighty is driving them to something because of some reason. So I feel concerned that my God, what is God Almighty's wish for him? He is being driven to some trouble. It seems I have not fully realized God Almighty before meeting Him. This is a strong feeling I have. Because I did have some doubt on His wishes and our freedoms. It is only after meeting Him that I could realize that our freedom is limited only to our thought. And any thought which comes out, takes a shape, it becomes God Almighty's wish. So forget any other physical action. Everything is God's wish. It is only mental freedom that we have. This I realized after meeting God Almighty. But had I known this thing before meeting Him, probably I would have realized this, and then I could have realized the God Almighty also. And therefore, because of this shortcoming, I feel probably I did not realize, self-realize God Almighty before meeting Him. By the way, this is a great revelation that our freedom is limited only to our mental thought. I have seen, I have read that a lot of freedom is considered that we have. Thought freedom, of course, anybody will tell, but at the same time, there's just so many freedom of using our limbs or this thing, that thing, so many things are there. Almost to this extent that you can do anything. Somehow, my revelations, my answers from God Almighty, I don't endorse this. Anyway, in my talk R12, I have said that realization, self-realization of God Almighty may come before meeting Him. This I have said because now I have revealed that thing about the freedom, that we have freedom of our mind only. So it is not just to follow. It is for genuine seekers to explore. Let them explore, let them find whether it is true or not. So it is up to them. But once they know, they can explore and then they can self-realize God Almighty even before meeting Him. And that will be very helpful. However, realizing this truth, this great revelation, may be difficult for a beginner on the path of spirituality or any other path for that matter. Because generally people understand we have all the freedom. And therefore, in one of my talks I have already said that a beginner may consider that he has the freedom of speech also as well as freedom of doing daily necessities. And when he rises further in the line of spirituality, he will realize himself. So, why one should accept, if I have told that I have realized this thing, or even if I have come to know from God Almighty, why I should believe it? You explore yourself, you see. You should not blindly believe the things. So, I don't have to say that you believe this. Why should I say? It is what I searched and I found. You have to search yourself now. But the genuine seekers who achieve good height, they will reach this truth, I am sure. After realizing God Almighty, it becomes easier to understand His designs. That is another great thing. In case of individuals, it is still difficult, as probably I stated in one of my earlier talks, that a person may go on using his freedom of thought and therefore it is very difficult for anybody to find out God Almighty's design in his case. But when the matter concerns many persons, each of whom have their own free will and they have a common destiny, what will happen there? Maybe a small minority may not agree for something, but a big majority may agree for something and they will use their freedom of thought for that particular purpose. Only a minority will use freedom of thought for some other purpose. And therefore, freedom of thought of the majority of the people will take over. So therefore, in their case, it is easier to guess God Almighty's design. But anyway, there is no point in going into all these exercises because it is of no use. Let us concentrate on our spiritual journey. You can know. Sometimes one feels like knowing it. I also did it. I could know. But there is no use. What for? Why we want to do that? It is just like same thing that we will try to get more and more general knowledge and finally what will happen? We will turn out to a library, that's all. It is of no practical use unless we experience it. What is the use of having all that knowledge? Therefore, take reasonable knowledge, but then go for own internal journey. I have also stopped asking several questions to God Almighty after analyzing that there is really no need to go on increasing my general knowledge, as I have already spoken. One very useful revelation is that I did not find some places called heaven or hell. Therefore, these may be imagination of some wise man in the ancient past. and which is being repeated by everybody. I did not find. Of course, because of the grace of the God Almighty, I just wanted to know about a dear departed soul. So in dream, not in reality that I went physically, in dream I was shown the glimpse of another world. There could be many. I was shown the glimpse of only one where I could see my departed person, and he was having a nice time. So that's the thing. But later on, my dear friends, I did not trouble God Almighty for such type of things. But in that particular case, probably God Almighty also might have thought, let me show him that other world. Otherwise, probably he'll not be doing some other good thing, etc. Get entangled into this. That is why he graced me with that sight. But again, here also I'll say, what is the use of knowing about other worlds, this and that? Even sometimes traveling in dream, or even physically, if we once travel, what will happen? Our general knowledge will only increase. Or we may be boasting to others that I saw this, I went there. But it is of no use, my dear friends. Our main aim should be to meet God Almighty. Then let me come to certain other general matters, because it may be useful to the people. That is why I am telling this thing, based on whatever I have seen, I have learned. Many good souls do lot of philanthropy work. Many others, they help others, take up the cause of deprived people, do service, especially to injured and sick. They all get God Almighty's blessings. It is with His grace that they continue doing it. They have to keep only this in mind, that they have been chosen by God Almighty to do this good job, and should thank God Almighty for having been picked up for this. Had they not been suitable, God Almighty was to otherwise also get these works done, and hence He would have chosen somebody else. So, therefore, they have to be always mindful that not they, but God Almighty is getting those things done by them. I think with this knowledge, they may not have ego or false pride on such matters. Knowing this truth, others not chosen need not rush to copy unless they get a strong urge from within. Instead, they should take God Almighty's mantra that I will become a proper human being, and when they rise in this, they will also get His equal grace. I also have found out about the way the employers, especially those generating substantial employment, could reach near God Almighty or even meet God Almighty. The method is very simple. They are already doing God Almighty's work of giving employment. Only thing is that if they can change their mental purpose of creating such employment for profit and profit and profit only, to reasonable profit, and for raising the level of humanity among employees, and take God Almighty's mantra of I will become a proper human being, then they would rise sharply, quickly in the scale of humanity, and may go very near to God Almighty, and finally may even meet Him. So it is up to them. I am not giving sermons, I am only telling what I have come to know. I also feel that these tips through my uploads could save their time in trying to meet me and knowing these same things again. As far as I am concerned, God Almighty has given me enough. First is health. At my age of 72.5 years, I am fine. Though I have some long standing ailments, but the same are staying where they were when I met Him. So they are not giving any big problem to me. Second is money. I got two unexpected gains beyond what I had thought or imagined, and another of different type not asked for by me. So he is taking good care of all of my needs. Actually, I don't need any money. Frankly speaking, I am not for money. Money is really very immaterial to me because I believe in God Almighty, that grace that I was born with roti kapda makan, and till my death I will have that. So therefore I have decided in my life to live and do only excellent things. Second is my immediate family. We have no problems. If some occur sometimes, the same are of very normal and routine nature. So you see, this is also very big grace, because if immediate family has problems, then I also be having a lot of worries. Fourth is that once, few months after God Almighty's darshan, I was feeling very inconvenienced, not by anybody, but by the nature. I just prayed to God Almighty to remove it, and within few seconds it was removed. It happened a few days later again. Then it struck me as to what I am doing, why I am giving trouble to God Almighty. I really felt very bad that I am giving trouble to Him. So I am giving trouble to Him for which, for things which probably I can endure. After this thinking, I do not ask favors from Him. However, I may summon His help in an extreme case. I have already told in R1 and R3 that I had got a powerful mantra, but I did not use it. So Ava also falls in the similar feeling of mine, not to go for supernatural powers. If such powers had been able to really prevent those gruesome criminal acts which almost kill me, then probably I could have gone for these things. So I find that there is no use going for such supernatural powers. Overall, I will say that I have all the bliss. That is, I am mast, which I had probably told in my R1. Mast means a very blissful life. If I do something, it's okay. If I don't do anything, that is also okay. In every situation, every condition, I am mast. I am blissful. No problem. So this is all I wanted to say, and I could recollect. Wish you all the very best. Thank you.